Welcome back to another episode of Keep It Fictional with the Port Moody Public Library. I'm Virginia here with my two book friends, Corinne and Sadie. Today we have and for you another one of those episodes where, at least for me, remind me that I'm always playing catch up with my books. There are just too many out there. Before I have a chance to read all the books that I claimed that I really wanted to read, here we are again talking about upcoming books that we are looking forward to add to our never ending to be read list. We just can win. But anyway, I am still very excited for these upcoming titles, and I'm sure my book friends are also. All of them looking so promising. So we each have once again chosen 5 books to highlight for you today. These are books that we are very much looking forward to reading. And I was kind of thinking about like our bingo card. Um, which category are we going to hit today? Do we have some cannibalism? Do we have some heist? Art? Theft, maybe? True crime? Strong female characters? I think lately retelling seems to be a thing. Do have some golden age mystery. I don't know. Do we have some bugs? Maybe. We will see. All right. Well, let's see if Corinne's first book will hit any of these categories for us. So get your bingo card ready, folks.
Yeah, so if you bet your bingo card on me, you're definitely going to succeed because I have really hit all of my favorite categories in this particular season. This is always like a really interesting publishing season. I'm sure my book friends find it the same. There's a lot of blockbusters kind of like looking for that next big summer read, but I find it's kind of like a weird little lull for me. I find that September for me is like the stronger publishing season. And so summer, sometimes I struggle a little bit to find my books, but there are definitely 5 that neatly fit into my bingo categories. And so if you are looking for a South Korean book in translation, you can check that off. Don't worry about it, my friends. I absolutely have you covered. So this particular book was a bestseller in Korea. And it has been billed as a biting. I just got that. A biting, fast paced vampire murder mystery. Exploring queer love and the consequences of loneliness. Yes. So I am very excited for this book. It has a fantastic cover that is like this lurid hot pink with like the lipsticked mouth with blood running down the side. I think it's gorgeous. It's called The Midnight Shift by Cheon Seon-Ran, translated by Gene Png. And I am just absolutely thrilled. The description of it is everything that I want. So it starts with kind of like your murder mystery element where 4 elderly people have died back to back to back to back at a certain hospital. They have jumped off the 6th floor window of this hospital. And our main protagonist, Soo-yeon, doesn't understand why she's the only one at her police precinct that is concerned about this. They just kind of wave it away as a coincidence, as, the consequences of people being ill. It's not really a big problem. And she doesn't want to look away from this. Everyone surrounding her just doesn't really want to examine the causes or the reason for this, but she doesn't really have that privilege because she knows someone at the hospital, her beloved grandma Unshim, who lives on that 6th floor. And so because she feels like there's this like greater force at play, she needs to investigate in order to protect her beloved grandma. And so she decides to investigate this alone. She immediately runs into a mysterious woman named Wanda. And here's the thing, you can't trust anyone named Wanda. They're obviously up to mysterious supernatural things. However, Wanda claims to be a vampire hunter, a totally normal thing to say. And she's on the trail of her ex-lover, Lily, who she is insistent is a vampire and is doing all of these murders. Soo-yeon is definitely skeptical at first because That sounds absolutely wild. However, when the fifth victim jumps from the window, she investigates and finds that indeed this victim has been entirely drained of their blood. And so she actually has to consider Wanda's outlandish story that maybe it was vampires. This is, according to the reviews, a gripping mystery. It was vampires. And a commentary about societal isolation and loneliness. Love it. The sharp knife of grief and the effects of marginalization. And it has been billed as perfect for the readers of Cursed Bunny. So a total win. I have got this one pre-ordered. It is coming out August 12th. So you can put that on your calendars. I'm going to throw it over to Sadie. Sadie, I know you can always be counted on in a bingo card situation. So, what is your Sadie book that you have chosen?
Okay, so I maybe I'm going to throw a little bit of a twist into it. Not with the author. The author is someone that I know and love, but with the subject matter a little bit. And it's kind of funny because I was planning on talking about this one first already. Vampires. Not usually my go-to. And it's interesting. So I have brought up like the Goodreads description of this book, and there's very little. I have searched the web, and there is very little. So I'm going to read out what it says, but there is very little. Santo Domingo de la Casada, 1532. London, 1837. Boston, 2019. 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, one grows deep, and one grows wild. And all of them grow teeth. That is it. That is all I got to go on. From the comments and reviews, the 3 words that come out the most are toxic, lesbian, vampires. So, this is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab. I have read her kids' books. I have read her adult books. I have read her YA books, and I love them all. And so I'm very excited about this one, even though there is not a lot of information out there. It is set to kind of be one of the things that I do really like, and it's set to be is kind of those following stories in different timelines. I'm sure they are all connected, especially if there's vampires involved. I'm sure they are connected more literally than in some of the other historical stories that I read. But that, again, that is kind of it that I have been able to find on this one, but it doesn't make me any less excited to read it. Because like I said, I love the author. There was a time when I was very into vampires, very, very into vampires. So it has not been a part of my current reading habits as much anymore, but it is definitely a part of my reading history, and it has been a love of mine in the past. So yeah, that I don't have too much to tell you about that one, but I am excited about Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab coming out June 10th. So I don't have too long to wait. Maybe I can get my hands on an arc of that one and solve all of the mysteries that are going on in my head. All right, Virginia, what do you have for your first pick?
I guess I feel like because it's V.E. Schwab, they kind of figure like you're gonna read it anyway. Why do I need to tell you about it, right? Like, I mean, they don't need a description. The book will sell. So, anyway, from usually when I do these most anticipated episodes, I try to find like new authors, new to me authors, so that could have potential to become new best friend. But I do have to do 2 repeat offers today. The first book that I have is The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong, and a poet, a novelist, Ocean Vuong's first debut novel on Earth, We Are Briefly Gorgeous, we have talked about on the show. Fiona has talked about on the show on Mark's very first episode, actually. Usually when we introduce a new book friend, we ask them for a list of books, and then we'll each read one so we can get to know our book friend, get to judge them on their reading taste, and then let's just see if there's a Venn diagram sort of going on between their preferences and ours. And I know this was a really, really good match for Fiona. I didn't read this until a couple years ago when both Mark and Fiona are no longer on the show. And so it was just like kind of my way to pretend that they're still here and then read books that are recommended by them. And so I think even Ocean, like just on its own, Ocean Vuong would have won me over anyway. But I think like this book special just because, like it was also beloved by the two of them. So just before I start, content warning, there is the book starts with a suicide attempt. So Gladness in the title refer to the name of the town in Connecticut, where our story takes place. The book begins with like a really good description of sort of the town itself. It's, as one of the characters mentioned, is big enough for 2 McDonald's and a GameStop. And so after the author takes us on a little bit of a tour of Gladness, we arrive at King Philip's Bridge, the bridge that will lead you out of town. And that's when we find 19-year-old Hai. Hai has climbed onto the other side of the railing. He's looking down at the river and he's thinking about jumping. And he's just looking for the spot where he's going to jump and where his body will land. As he's looking for the right place, he spotted a body floating down the river. And then he heard yelling across. Alarmed, he looked again and he saw that it was not actually a body. It was just some laundry that got blown away. And he looked over and he saw there was an old woman shouting. And that's also when she was looking at her and she just also happened to look up and spotted him. And her eyes widened and there was this look of fear on her face. And she started yelling at him, "Young man, don't do it." And I feel so bad about making this old woman got so scared that he was just like, "Oh no, I'm an engineering student. I just went over to see what the structure of the bridge is like. That's why I'm on this side, the side." And he's and she just keep yelling like, "You come down right here, right now." And so, there's nothing he could do but to follow what she said. And so, he went to meet her and it was pouring rain and she insisted that you come into my house right now or else I'm going to call the cops. You come into my house. And so he went inside and that's when, he introduced himself. "My name is Hai." And the old woman said, "Oh, hello. That's a nice name." And it's like, "Oh, no, not Hai, like Hai, Hai, like that's my name. Labas, like in my language, in Lithuanian, we say labas when we say hello." And she said, "My name is Grazina." It means beautiful in Lithuania. And that's how Hai meets Gracia. Gracina learns that she lives alone at the moment. She has lost her living caregiver and she's waiting to be assigned another one. She has dementia and she needs sort of a caretaker at all times. And Hai doesn't really know how it happens, but the next thing he knows, Hai has agreed to stay and be a temporary caregiver to make sure that Gracina takes her pills at the right time, make sure that somebody to do the grocery runs to get her dinner, which is usually a stover Salisbury steak with a brownie on the side. Hai has nowhere to go anyway, and he figures, well, I get a place to stay. It's not a bad deal, so sure. But he quickly realized what it means to take care of Christina, of someone who has, and what kind of demons are haunting her when she's not able to remember where she is and what time it is. And we gradually, as the story progresses, learn about Hai, why she can't go home, even though his mother lives in Gladness, why his mother cannot know that he's back, why he has a UPS jacket, even though he's never worked there before. Learn about his cousin Sunny, whose mother is currently in prison. Sunny, who got Hai a job at the Home Market, which is a fast food joint that sells and serves Thanksgiving food every single day. So that's what you get at this fast food joint. And the crew that works there and how they become, of course, Hai's found family, including BJ, the manager, who secretly wants to be a pro wrestler. And of course, we learn about Racina and her story. Why the trauma that she has. When she was fleeing the war during World War II, and it's a book that, just like any, I actually managed to read this book already, and the day that I finished reading it, I can't read anything else. I was just like, I just gave up on everything that day, and I cried buckets, as expected. It's just the way that Ocean Vuong, I think, like the way he talks about life, the way he talks, like there's just this tenderness in his prose, and it's so intimate the way he draws you into the characters, all these people who we have forgotten, the society has forgotten, the loneliness that you felt when you only got trauma. That's all you have, and that you're dealing with that every single day, and the struggles that people have to be present, and how important it is for all of us to know that we are enough, that someone to tell us that we're good. That's all we need. A really, really beautiful book. If you have never read any Ocean Vuong, I urge you to read it. Pick up any of his books. I love him so much. I even has his poetry book. I haven't read it yet, but I do actually have his poetry book also. So this one, his new book coming out, The Emperor of Gladness, coming out on May 13. So I will be bugging you, Mark and Fiona, every single day from May 13. I'll just be texting you every day and just be like, have you read it yet? Have you read it at? How about now? So yeah. So I hope someone will pick this up, because this is probably one of the best books I've read so far. So, all right. Let's head back maybe to Sadie and see what Sadie has got. Like, I know vampires wasn't on your bingo card, but maybe this next book will have something on there. We'll see.
Yes, all right, we're back to the usual. We're back to heists. We're back to YA heists, a little bit of romance, a little bit of fantasy. This is the book Den of Liars by Jessica S. Olson. Jessica Olson is an author that I have had a couple of their books on my TBR, and I've never read them. But there's something about them that always draws me in. And so maybe this one will be the one that I read. We will see. So this book, as I said, it is a YA fantasy romance heist story, and it follows Lola St. James, which is quite the name. And Lola is the world's best kept secret. When her father's loss in the Liar's Dice Tournament, which is a high stakes competition where players are forced to gamble with their deepest secrets, make her a target. She was rescued by the notorious leader of the group The Tentacles, who is known simply as the Thief. But the thief's kindness came at the price of Lola's heart. And in the years that followed, she and the thief formed a bond like no other, able to feel each other's emotions because of their shared heart. So not just metaphorically speaking, but actually her heart. So now Lola lives under the pseudonym Astra, but she's determined to prove herself and become a full-fledged tentacle. So there's a critical heist that she is a part of, and it goes sideways. And the only way for her to move forward is to compete in the Liar's Dice Tournament herself. She is confident. She knows that she can pull off any heist. But then she meets the thief's mysterious brother, the Liar. And he's the one who runs the game. Turns out to be a little bit more than Lola bargained for. As her attraction for him grows and illusions run wild, she will be forced to confront the secrets of her past, the truth of the brothers' shared history, and the lies that she tells herself. Da, da, da. All very dramatic, all very Sadie, all of the things on the bingo card. So yeah, this one comes out on July 1st. This one sounds really fun and exciting. I'm sure there's going to be some very dramatic fantasy romance moments in it that you can only get from a YA romantasy. Still hate that word. But yes, I am. I'm excited about a heist novel. I'm always excited about a good heist novel, especially one that involves magic in it. Is always on the top of my list. So that is Den of Liars by Jessica S. Olson. All right, Karine, do you have any heists? Do you have any other bingo card entry?
I actually do have a heist book, but I'm saving it. But it is on my bingo card in that this is a golden age Japanese mystery. Of course. They are like the salve to all of my woes. In that whenever my brain needs a break, I just turn over to one of them and everything is okay. So this is by the author of The Millhouse Murders, which I genuinely enjoyed, which has one of the most disturbing covers that they've come up with. It's kind of like this like pink latex mask on like a lurid green background, which I did not care for. And the Decagon House Murders. And this one is the Labyrinth House Murders. Now, when will people learn not to go to like dinner and or house parties at houses that have names? As soon as it has names like, oh, the mysterious guillotine house, like you should just decline that invitation, especially if you have like a long-standing beef with the owner. Just stay home. Stay home and stay alive. And so this is going to be another like weird house murder of people that really should know better. It's also like a closed room murder, which I love. I never figure them out. I just like whatever. There's a vent here. There's a weird slip in the door here. Whatever. I don't care. I'm just there for the ride. And this one is, a house of the labyrinth. Why? Why would you build such a thing? Well, we're gonna find out. So Miyagaki Yotaro is one of Japan's most famed mystery writers. Uh-oh. But several years ago, he put down his pen, probably for mysterious reasons, left the Tokyo literary world, probably for some reasons, and lives a life of seclusion in the remote Labyrinth House. Built by the notorious architect Nakamura Seiji. When four of the country's most exciting up-and-coming crime writers are invited to the house for Yotaro's birthday party, all four of them should have absolutely declined and stayed home or said, hey, why don't you come to us in Tokyo? We'll have a good meal, we'll drink a little, do some karaoke, everyone goes home alive. Except they don't. They are honored to accept this invitation to go to this mysterious house in the middle of nowhere that's called the Labyrinth House. And shockingly, no sooner than they have arrived than they are confronted with a shocking death. Then lured into a bizarre, deadly competition with each other. All right. As the competition proceeds and murder follows murder, there's only four of them, but we'll see what happens. The brilliant Kiyoshi Shimada investigates. Can he solve the mystery of the house before all those trapped in the labyrinth are dead? Probably not. These usually have a shockingly high body count, to the point where you're like, I don't think the detective is very good at his job because everyone is dead. And so I'm pretty sure like part of being a detective is making sure that some people stay alive by the end of the story, but that's just me. And can you guess the solution before he does? Probably not. But I'll enjoy it nonetheless. Yeah, so this is going to be another beautiful locked room, ridiculous Japanese murder mystery, golden age wonderful. It is put out by Steerford Press. It has been translated by Ho-Ling Wong, and it is coming out May 13th, and I could not be more thrilled. I have read so many good ones this year. I'm just like sliding in a mention for the No Mask Murders, which I desperately enjoyed so much this year. And the Black Cat one that's coming out in September. And I was devastated that I couldn't talk about it on this podcast. So look forward to September. That's like a little spoiler for you. All right, Virginia, what do you have for us next?
All right. Weirdly, I'm not checking off any bingo cards categories here. For the first time in my most anticipated list, I have to put a nonfiction on my list. I know it's just like what is happening. Because of the subject and mostly because of the author. Another repeat author that have been mentioned on our podcast many times. And in fact, the author of my number one book in 2024, which is Yoko Tawada, author of Porcelain and the Trans-Tibetan Angel. And so her upcoming book is called Exophony, Voyages Outside the Mother Tongue, and is translated from Japanese into English by Lisa Hofmann-Kuroda. Many readers will probably be most familiar with Tawada's novels written in Japanese, but as I mentioned last year during the episode, um, she also writes in German. She was born in Tokyo and then she moved to Germany when she was 22 and she now lives in Berlin. And this collection of essays sort of tackled sort of her take on languages, or the published describe as hybridizing languages. Languages is a main theme in many of her books. She explored that in her Scatter trilogy, starting with Scatter All Over the Earth, and then last year she came up with Suggested in the Star, and the third book is coming out later this year. And the book has a character who is sort of looking for someone who can speak her language, the language of so-called the land of sushi, as they call it, and she has invented a language once she's moved to Europe called Penska. It's some like a combination of the many different Scandinavian languages that somehow like people can understand her, even though it's a completely homemade language. And Tawada first heard the term exophonic in Senegal. So this book talks a lot about like while she's doing traveling and when she's encountering different languages, sort of what her experience is. And so the word means to exist outside of one's mother tongue. And so in this collection, she sort of explored this artificial border that people have put in terms of like, well, this is like whose language and like who is the legit speaker, who's the legit writer of a language and who is not. Who are they keeping in and who are they keeping out? And the ridiculous idea that there is such thing as some people believe that there's a pure form of language that certain people cannot speak or cannot, like claim. And so as she goes to different places, she hears the word, she sort of try to parse out the meanings, try to see the different combination, like what makes up this word. And then she thinks about like, well, how would you describe it in, how would you say it in like express it in German or express in Japanese? And she's looking at it and she starts to realize when you are so-called outside of that language, like there's a lot of things that you may notice, that you may discover that people who speak that language supposedly natively may not see. And so she's very good with this wordplay and she's kind of looking at like how we can from these unfamiliar words kind of like draw meaning and just really get closer to the language, maybe even more so than people who can speak the language natively. And so I'm really interested in her take on this. I recently read On Translating Myself and Others by Jhumpa Lahiri, who's another like award-winning author, and she's of South Asian descent. She was born in England and then she moved to the States when she was 3 years old. And of course, the fact that she is like a author of color writing in English, people don't consider her to be American. And then she go uproot herself and her family and she moved to Italy, as she said, grafted herself into a new language. And she became a translator of Italian literature and also became a writer in Italian. And she ended up writing in Italian and then translated her own work back into English. And she faced so much criticism of people who kind of talk about, oh, well, that's her Italian versus their Italian. And she's made to feel inferior, like, that like somehow she cannot like write in this language, like people don't consider her a legit writer. And she slowly realizes that what people consider to be her deficiency, her they call blind spot, is actually a point of view. And so she talks a lot about that in that book, and it was super, super interesting. So I'm looking forward to another writer who also writes in multiple languages, and what Tawada's experience would be like. So I think for anyone who is interested in languages, I think this would be a great, great read. And I cannot wait for this to come out. And just like Corinne said, there is like she has another book coming out in the fall. I will try not to bring it up, but like there's definitely another book that I'm looking forward to. So this is Exophony, Voyages Outside the Mother Tongue, and it's by Yoko Tawada, translated by Lisa Hofmann-Kuroda. All right. So we've gone through 6 books so far. We're gonna keep everybody in suspense until next week when we talk about our rest of our picks. So hopefully you've got I'm sure there will be more bingo cards categories coming up. Hopefully you've got your catalog ready, you got your notebook, like to take some more notes and put these books on hold. So until then, we'll see you next week. Happy reading.